The Nintendo Switch had an amazing 2017, selling tons of consoles, but it actually had the game releases to match, something that's always a concern for Nintendo systems, especially right at the beginning. But the big end, they came out of the box swinging with Switch releases this year. So I wanted to go over the 10 that were my favorites. Now, before I begin, I want to say I can only assume that when people are making similar lists, Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild probably dominate them. The games have received tons of praise and accolades all over the place. Everyone can't shut up about them, even me. So since I'm tired of talking about them, you're probably a bit tired of hearing people explain to you how great these titles are. So I'm gonna omit them from this list. They will not be featured. Sorry, Link and Mario, it's time to share that spotlight a little with your peers. Rounding out the list at number 10 is The Binding of Isaac Afterbirth Plus. I'm sure plenty of you are familiar with this twin-stick shooter by now, as it did originally come out in 2011, but this package pulls together all of the updates and add-ons that have been implemented up to this point, harkening back really to the classic Legend of Zelda games, with the sprawling dungeon-style layout. This randomly generated adventure constantly finds new ways to kill you. Yeah, it's tough. I'm not going to use the DS term, but it's also fantastic for the Nintendo Switch's portable mode, as a full playthrough can really be done in about an hour, but that doesn't mean the game ends there. Again, it's randomly generated, so every playthrough is different, and a great deal of the game's content is hidden, so you'll certainly be going through it a few times if you want to experience everything. There's also a treasure trove of items to collect throughout your playthroughs, as well as other modes. There's a sort of survival mode where you power through numerous waves, as well as a daily challenge mode where all players play with a preset of power-ups and map layout and can compete for supremacy on the leaderboard. There's plenty of content in this indie title to keep you busy for hours on end, which is always a good thing when you're on the go looking to pass the time. With the Switch getting so many spectacular games released this year, I really didn't want to put any of the Wii U ports on this list, but I just couldn't bring myself to leave Mario Kart 8 Deluxe off of it. When Mario Kart 8 originally released on the Wii U, it was heralded as easily one of the best games in the console's entire library. So it would have been fine, I think, if the game just did get a straight port onto the Switch. A portable version would have been worth the price of admission, maybe with a couple extra characters or something. Now they did that, some small additions, but they fixed the major blight on the original release. Completely overhauled the battle mode. If you're a fan of classic Mario Kart games, there is a good chance you spent more time in the battle modes than the actual racing. The battle mode in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, I can safely say, belongs up there with the best of them. Multiple modes, and not to mention fully playable online with up to 12 players. So things get pretty chaotic. It's a blast, and the game, I honestly feel, is worth a repurchase if you bought the original release just for this mode. And that online runs incredibly smooth. For some reason, Nintendo always seems to hit home runs with Mario Kart games online. I don't know what it is. But obviously this is all also doable offline, in LAN modes mind you. So I'd say, as of right now, if you're looking for a game to have a bunch of friends over and play together on the Switch, you simply can't do better than Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. When this image first leaked before this year's E3, I figured Mario plus Rabbids was guaranteed to be some throwaway party game. If you gave me 100 guesses, I still probably wouldn't have guessed that this was going to be a tactical game, a tactical shooter reminiscent of XCOM. When they first showed the gameplay at E3, I was surprised, to say the least. But beyond that, the game actually turned out to be pretty damn good. When the Switch was first announced, I said that Fire Emblem was the series I'm most excited to see on it, and while sure, this is no Fire Emblem game, it definitely scratches that tactical itch. And if you're a newcomer to this style of play, it does a great job of easing you into it and teaching you all the mechanics along the way. I know some people aren't all about the physical comedy and antics of the Rabbids, I know, but I've always kind of had a soft spot for them, and teaming them up with Mario and the gang is great in that I love seeing the Mario characters react to the Rabbids like, what is wrong with these idiots? I hope this crossover is the first step in Nintendo loosening up the reins a bit with their franchises because, as I've stated previously, the demand for Switch games is high, and I'm all for other companies offering up new games, new experiences for these characters, as long as they treat them well, as Ubisoft did here. I'm so glad I have a reason to talk about Fast RMX at this point in the Switch's life. The follow-up to Fast Racing Neo on the Wii U is guilty of only one sin, in my opinion, and that's being a Switch launch game that didn't have Zelda in the title. Yes, because this game also came out on day one, I feel like many either overlooked it or straight up never even heard about it. One of the more niche franchises that Nintendo fans have been hoping the Big N will revive at some point is F-Zero, but honestly, I don't think you really need a new F-Zero when you have Fast RMX. This, to me, is the F-Zero we've always wanted. Actually, going off of what I said about Nintendo opening up their franchises more, I think if they were to do another F-Zero, they should just have Shinen make it, as they essentially already have. Beyond just the speed and gorgeous visuals, Fast RMX has this interesting boost mechanic where you toggle a button to switch your vehicle between blue and orange, and on the track you'll see sections marked with these colors as well. So it's up to you to make sure you have the same color selected to gain a big boost. If you have the wrong color, you'll be slowed. Managing your boosts as well as maintaining control of your vehicle through some of those tight turns while you're going extremely fast is what this game is all about, and it's also playable online. Like I said, I'm sure many missed this one, and if you did, and you like racing games, especially the F-Zero series obviously, you need to check this game out. Oh, Splatoon 2, we have some history, don't we? I do believe that my Splatoon 2 video has the worst like to dislike ratio of any video on my channel. I'm not brave enough to look at it anymore though, so it may not be the case anymore, but yeah, I put the game on blast a little bit for being so similar to the original. Unfortunately, the simpletons who watched that video probably didn't catch the part, the majority of the video in fact, where I talk about how it was still an awesome game. I mean, the original Splatoon won tons of awards, so it's not like you're going to get something bad by sticking close to that, but I just felt like it was so similar. It would have been better to just keep building on the original Splatoon, you know, porting it over to the Switch. I get why they didn't want to have another port, obviously. But, you know, we got so many maps, modes, items, etc. up until the last day of support for the original. It just seemed counterintuitive to me to knock all that down and start from the beginning only a year later. Again, regardless though, I'd say this is still the best pure online multiplayer experience that you can currently get on the Switch. It's a ton of fun for both casuals and tryhards. Just don't let those tryhards know if you play without motion controls, because they will cry like babies. Even if you dominate and are the team MVP, I promise you, there's just something wrong with their brains. Yes, I really enjoyed Binding of Isaac, but I love The End is Nigh. Unfortunately, there is no better game to compare this to than Super Meat Boy, but I don't want you thinking this is just some cheap knockoff. I know there's tons of them. There's actually quite a lot going on in this game, and it mixes things up as the game goes on. You know, it adds new elements and stuff to really challenge your thinking. Those underwater sections, ooh, they tick me off. The platforming is certainly challenging, obviously, but if you go for the collectibles in each level, oh, you're going to be pulling your hair out at points, I promise you. But this is another title that's great for on the go, as you're working screen to screen basically, so it's super easy to shut it off at any moment, and you'll be able to pick right up later with ease. No confusion, you know, a lot of these bigger, more sprawling games, it's kind of like, oh, what was I doing again? What was going on? This game, you don't have to worry about that at all. You'll just jump right back in and get right back into the action. The platforming is great, each level feels totally different from the last, and it does a good job with ramping up that difficulty. Like, yeah, I said it's hard, but it builds the difficulty in a way that doesn't make you feel like you have no chance on this screen if you were able to complete the last one, essentially. It's awesome. The blue blur. Oh, how they have mistreated you. If you follow the gaming industry at all, you're probably aware that Sonic hasn't exactly been at the top of his game for the last, I don't know, decade or two. Just massive disappointment after massive disappointment. Some games have been decent, but hardly anything that could be considered a classic. So what do you do when there's seemingly nothing left to do? Let the fans take over. Sonic Mania is a straight-up labor of love created by mega fans of the franchise, and I would argue that this is in fact the next classic Sonic game. Seriously, if you're making a list of must-play Sonic titles, how do you not include this game? They did what was necessary. Sonic has been pulled in so many directions in recent years, it seems like many have forgotten what made the older games so great. So to get back there, simply you have to tear everything down, essentially roll back to that era. And on first look, you might think you're seeing one of the original Genesis Sonic games in motion. But nope, this game released in 2017. But it brings back that classic fast-paced, solid platforming. Again, not all about the speed. Any real Sonic fan will tell you, yeah, the going fast segments are iconic, but that's not necessarily all these games are about. Now, sadly, the Sonic team didn't see similar success with the release of Sonic Forces, but hopefully this will make it clear to them that Sonic's future will be best suited by building off of Sonic Mania rather than whatever the hell this was. Before Doom was announced to be coming over to the Switch, I wasn't even considering it. Mostly because, we were mostly seeing ports of older games. I didn't expect to see one of the most popular shooters from just last year to be making an appearance, at least not so soon. But porting this game was a fantastic choice by Bethesda. It checks off so many boxes in terms of not only games that the Switch was missing, but also that Nintendo systems as a whole tend to be a bit on the short side of, namely first-person shooters and games with abundance of violence. And perhaps no game hits those marks better than Doom. A return to the high-intensity action that dominated FPS games in the 90s, Doom is not only a great game, but a showcase of what can be achieved on the Switch. While not hitting that 60 FPS mark, unfortunately, the game still maintains a decent frame rate and preserves a fair amount of the graphical quality from its other home console counterparts. You may not have many options for FPS games on the Switch, but does that really matter when you have one of the best ones currently available? Golf Story almost made it to number 1, it really did. It was number 1 for a second when I was making this list. But honestly, I know everybody loves to show how hip they are by gushing over indie games, how they're so groundbreaking, innovative, they just put all the AAA games to shame. Whatever. But this one, I do feel is worth gushing over. It's a golf RPG. Yep, you're playing golf in the way you're probably familiar with in tons of games, but you're also leveling up, boosting your stats, and questing. You heard that right. There's the main quest line, side quests, secrets to unlock, everything you would expect from an RPG, but it all revolves around golf. It works, I swear. And a big reason for that is the phenomenal world building and cast of characters. Yes, I'm talking about world building in a golf game. The well-worn golf course has a lot going on. It kind of reminds me of Caddyshack a bit and a lot of those movies from the 80s, and how by filling such a mundane setting with interesting characters, you can have gold. You've got a lot of the tropes from these types of movies. Your character is the novice with a lot of promise. There's the coach who doesn't want to train you from the beginning. Your annoying rival. The greedy owner of the course who just cares about how they can make more profit. It's so good. And because of this great writing, you'll be fully engaged right from the start. Beyond that, just look at the game. Beautiful, pixelated graphics, the music is outstanding. I can't praise this game enough. I've seen people online talking about how there are so many indie games flooding onto the Switch, and it's hard to choose which ones you should play. If you can only play one indie game right now on the Switch, play this one. How could number 1 not be Xenoblade Chronicles 2? Now, I'll admit, it's certainly not a game for everyone, even though I really would like people to give it a chance, but the game I never thought we'd see in 2017. The Xenoblade games are always massive and famous for getting delayed, but they made the 2017 date. I don't want to downplay how impressed I was with that. Simply for the Switch, this is the JRPG you've been looking for. Fun characters, awesome vistas and enemies that really give the game a sense of scale and, immerse you in the environment. An engaging combat system that combat, I know I made a whole video basically just talking about how much I like the combat in this game, in this series, as it evolves throughout the game. Yes, getting kind of complicated, but it eases you into the new mechanics enough, in my opinion. There's the Pokemon-esque system of collecting blades. You acquire these materials to summon new blades, which are these companion characters for those in your party. They influence your weapons as well as abilities your character will have. There are a ton of different ones, including rare ones. So that can easily turn into a game in itself, trying to catch them all, essentially. Collect all the different blades, as well as power them up. I think JRPGs will go down as the genre best suited for the Switch, as they often require huge time investments, so what better way to get through them than always having them with you, always having them at the ready, whether you're on the go or sitting on your couch at home. I can't wait to play more of these types of games on this system as its life goes on, and Xenoblade Chronicles 2 has really set a high bar right out of the gate. And that's it. Those are my top 10 Nintendo Switch games of 2017. Of course, let me know which games were your favorites in the comments. As always, I'm John Zakari, and thanks for watching.